welcome everybody. We have an agenda. If you didn't get an agenda, they're at the table where Joe is sitting back there at the back for the meeting today. There's note cards there also, so grab one or two of those. If you have questions or comments, that we're going to have an information sharing this morning and then question and answer after service. So if you can't stay after, or you just want to write your notes down, take one of the cards and put your name and date on it and hand it to any of the members of the task force. So I want to introduce the council enabled a task force to help lead this discussion and information process, and I want to recognize the other members of our task force. So Kurt Letterman's a task force. I see Dick Lee just sitting down, Carol Schneider, Stephanie, Kit Bowerman, and John Nelson. I think the only one that's not here, and he and Joyce are in Arizona, I think, for this particular meeting. So anyway, the task force members, if any of you have questions, concerns on the agenda, we've got our contact information there, so you can always reach out to us as a way to help answer any questions or concerns you might have. With that said, I want to, we also have with us today, our guests are from Managed Housing, Troy, and Poppi from Third Place Design Co-op. So they'll be doing most of the presentation today and talking. So we welcome them to our congregation. With that said, I want to turn it over to Pastor Laura, who's going to lead us in a prayer.
Let us pray. We give you thanks, O God, for the abundance of resources that you have given to our congregation and for the opportunities you have given us to do ministry and service to our community in your name. We ask that you be with us in our conversation this morning as we explore another possibility for ministry in our community, one that could potentially deepen our already long-standing ties with the issue of housing needs and being able to meet them. Let our conversation, our words, and everything that we say be to your honor and glory. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. I want to first describe kind of where we are. We had a very brief introduction at the semi-annual meeting, and at that time the city had not yet voted and passed on the change to the land use zoning that would increase the housing opportunity on faith-based properties. That was passed this last summer, and I think it was in August. Today, this is just an information sharing. There's no decision that's been made. There's nothing that's been, our task force is not enabled to make decisions. The responsibility of our task force is to provide information, gather information, so the congregation and the council can make decisions. So we are, the boots on the ground that are help gathering it to explore this opportunity for the congregation of for affordable housing on our property. So we will today, we have a lot of information to share, so any questions, discussion will happen after service. If you're not able to stick around, or if you have questions, I left note cards back there, so just put your name and date on it, and you can write it down, and we'll make sure to answer it. We're going to be posting everything that you see today on our website. We'll be posting people's questions and answer on the website. We'll be posting new discussion and items that come up along the way on our website. So we also are saying that our congregation is under no preconceived timeline to do anything. We're under no pressure to do anything. We need to come to a resolution ourselves on how and in what way we want to proceed as a congregation, and it's based on our own comfort level in doing so. What we have to decide first as a congregation is how do we as a congregation respond to the housing affordability crisis in our community. The city council has recently enabled faith-based properties to develop more housing on their land than they used to be able to do, and so we need to decide how do we want to engage in that and how do we want to respond to that opportunity. So that's what this information sharing is about. That's how the presentation is put together as a layout and example of how that could be done. There's other choices that we can make, and those are the kind of things that we want to hear from people of where is their comfort level and how they'd like to proceed. So with that, I want to turn it over to Kit And Stephanie can talk a little bit about why St. Andrews and why now.
Thanks, Al. Way back in 1987, a small group of passionate people basically decided we need some low-income housing in this area. And so these 5 people got together with Pastor Jim and said, we need some seed money. I think it was $5,000 they asked for, and they got $2,000? $2,000, and they got it, and from there, St. Andrews Housing Group started. And one, you know, Darcy, I have to hate to say this, but in this picture, you look a lot younger than you do now, but you still look really good. Oh, I'm in trouble. Anyway, but they did, I'm going to kind of read from the website here from St. Andrews, or from Imagine Housing. They soon formed St. Andrews Housing Group as an independent nonprofit organization focused entirely on creating affordable apartment homes in the region. Today, because of the ongoing grassroots commitment of local citizens, 639 affordable apartments exist in Bellevue, Issaquah, Kirkland, Brewster Island, and Redmond. From the very beginning, and for nearly 35 years now, our community has worked to preserve and expand permanent affordable housing options in King County's east side. So that was then, and it's still going on. So what now? Well, I think Hal kind of said it. The area out there has been sitting there because we couldn't do anything with it. And a few of us pushed at Pastor Jim about that when he was working with city. He said, never going to happen. He said, the way the zoning laws are. Well, the people got smart apparently in the city council and changed that. So we had the opportunity to at least explore if we want to share some of our land for low-income housing. So with that, I want to pass the baton to Stephanie.
Thanks, Kit. So Kit laid out a nice foundation and spoke about the why now. And I want to talk a little, just briefly, a little bit more about the why. So several years ago when we started the call process to call Pastor Laura, those of us, including myself, who were on the call committee, did a lot of information gathering. We interviewed many of you. And we asked, what are we doing well? What could we improve upon? And what is important to us? What are our core values? And over and over and over again, it was community. And we've always been great at outreach. But there was a big desire to do more about our truly local community. You know, the community that is just outside our doors. And so this is a fantastic opportunity to start that and be more present in our immediate community and provide support for those that are our neighbors. Thanks.
With that, we'll turn it over to Imagine Housing, Troy, and they are a well-known organization to many of us here. Obviously, our congregation started it with the St. Andrews Housing Group that then changed its name to Imagine Housing. We reached out to council and said, we think so it makes a lot of sense as we move forward in this journey that we work with Imagine Housing, given the trust and relationship that we've had with this organization for close to 30 years. And so we reached out to them and said, would you consider working with us to explore this? And they said, sure, we would love to do that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Troy, and you can talk to the group a little bit about the process, what's engaged, and how it all works.
Thank you, Hal. Kit, thank you for basically stealing all my thunder and saying everything I needed to say about Imagine. So, and Darcy, I don't see any difference. So we won't get that. Well, thank you. My name is Troy Drawz. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development for Imagine Housing. It is an honor and a privilege to be here to talk to you today. It is not often that you get to come back to what I lovingly refer to as the mothership. You know, you founded this concept and the organization that we are today. So we started with a mission that started 14 units, and we're now, 639 units with 76 currently under construction and a huge pipeline that we're looking at, which absolutely includes a partnership on this particular project. So I know that there's a process everybody wants to understand, and so Hal has graciously kind of indicated we're really not under pressure. This is kind of what we call a unicorn, where time is really not the enemy. This is going to go at the pace that the congregation wants, because you are absolutely a partner in this process. That's a little different than what we would normally experience, where you just go buy a piece of land and then you go through your permitting and financing process, and then you are usually in a rush to get there. This is going to be a very highly collaborative process. It actually has been already, and it's actually also unusual where you have the landowner come to you and say, hey, can you help us work on this? And we're like, absolutely we can. Why would we not? I mean, you're the whole reason that we're here. So from a process standpoint, we'll work together with the congregation to kind of talk through what it is that the congregation wants to see in the partnership. We, through the C1 Land Use Code Amendment, could, in theory, build 185 units. We all kind of look at each other like, that's probably a little aggressive. That doesn't really seem to meet everybody's goals. So again, through the process being collaborative, we've talked about, well, what do we feel like the church might want? What's a compatible use? How would we like to configure it? What are the things that we need to be sensitive to? And it was very clear. Protect the trees. Protect the parking as much as possible. Make it an interactive space that both communities can enjoy. So we took that into consideration to make sure that we were providing a complementary use for our concept. And again, I want to be very clear. This is just a concept. We're not all the way there until you say we're there. We'll work with you every step of the way, which is a lot different than us just going, again, buying a piece of property, building what we think we need to build. So it's that important to us that you as a partner are fully vested in the project and get what you want out of it as well. So from a process standpoint, what we've talked about with the task force is to go through project concepting through next year. So at the beginning of next year, and probably start later this month and early in December, we'll sketch out what we call a memorandum of understanding on how are we going to work together. It doesn't have to be overly binding, but it'll just set the ground rules for what do both sides need in order to explore doing the project. Because there are going to be certain commitments we have to make to get further down the road. Then as we work through the concept process, we expect that to take most of 2024. And then once we've come to an agreement about what everybody feels comfortable with, then we'll start going farther down the road towards getting the project financed. And as Hal has said, again, we're not under any pressure for timing on this. The only thing that'll really be timing related is if there's any public funding cycles that we need to align some of the project timing with. But we're so far ahead of that, according to the timeline that we're projecting, we're in really good shape. It really allows us to have that time to really go back and forth and talk about what is it, again, that we all want that's going to serve the community. After that, we'll go through the permitting and land use approval process, which should we cross our fingers very smoothly. That's always a sore spot in many developers' process, but we have many friends in the city of Bellevue, so we'll be leaning very hard on them to further the cause for affordable housing. So we would expect all the financing to be in place if we continue down this kind of timeline that we've projected. In 2026, so in the latter part of 2026, we would anticipate starting construction, and then we would expect construction to finish sometime in 2028 and then start leasing up 2028 through 2029. So as you can see, it's a fairly long timeline. It's a bit longer than what we would normally do, but again, we're not under any pressure, and again, the congregation is, in our opinion, the most important partner, and we're going to make sure that you get what you want out of this to support the community and the goals that you have. So with that, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Poppi, and Poppi is our architect who's worked with us on kind of the initial concepts to get us to where we are today.
Hi everybody, I'm Poppi Handy with Third Place Design Co-operative. Third Place Design Co-op is a community-based organization. We go out into the community and build homes and facilities for folks. And one of our favorite things is to work hand in hand with folks like you. It's really one of the things we really enjoy. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Their Place Design Cooperative has been around doing affordable housing and community-based design since 2014. Prior to that, I was with another firm that actually worked with you guys and with Imagine Housing on Andrews Glen. And I actually met with you guys, I don't know how many of you, I can't remember, it was so long ago, but way back then I did the community outreach with you all then. So I'm coming back full circle. So we're super excited to bring this into the fold here. The series of boards that you see over there, we're also going to be looking at up here on the images on the screen. And then I believe we're leaving these behind, correct? So you can have some time to digest them. There's a lot of information. Want to make sure you have time to look at everything and answer any questions you have. The view that you see here is if you're coming out the door right here and you're looking across the parking lot towards the new housing. And so as you come out on Sunday morning or during the week when you're here, that's kind of what you would see. We really wanted to give you an image of the bulk and scale of the building, just to kind of let you know how it was fitting into the surrounding trees. One of the things that we are doing here, you can kind of see this pattern. Those are kind of trying to mimic the trees in the background so that the building blends a little bit with its background. We are taking out a little bit of trees to be able to put the building in. There's still the whole park's worth of trees there. The other thing that we really wanted to do was make the connection from this to this central courtyard here. And you can see we have this diagonal path right here, and I'll go over that a little more on the site plan. But we really wanted to have that communal connection between the congregation and the housing and the folks that live there. A lot of times when we work with congregations, they like to have an ongoing relationship with the housing, and there's sometimes an advisory board that works with the housing folks and all those things. So we really wanted to facilitate that and kind of build that into the program from the start. Right here is the community room, and I'll go through this also in the plan, and then a play area as well. So this is the site plan. This is 28th here, 148th. This is you. I think we're right here right now. Just in case you were wondering. This is your parking lot here. You'll notice that one bay of parking is underneath the building. So we are proposing to utilize one section of the parking back in there. There still is a little over 90 spots available in the parking area here that will remain. This is the first floor of the housing. The main entry to the first floor is actually here off of 28th Street. We have some visitor parking here. And then we have a ramp down to the garage. We're fully parked underneath the building. We have 82 stalls under there, plus 6 up on the top. Our community room is located here on this corner. That's kind of what I was showing you in the last sketch. So that as you're coming down here, you can kind of see that was that image we were looking at coming straight into the courtyard. So again, that was the idea here, is that there's this really strong connection between the congregation and the folks in the church, so that you can, it's kind of reinforced by that visual connection. We have the main lobby, and then we have a series of studio 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. The objective of this project is to serve families. So we have 20% of the units, which is about 22 units, are 3 bedrooms. So we really wanted to make sure that we were serving the whole community. Okay. You can see here, this is the housing and then your building right here. And we kind of did this just so that you could see what's around here, because you can walk to the coffee shop, there's a cafe nearby, you can go get some gas pretty easy. So that's a parking we know here in front of the LDS church. And then you can see again all of the trees that are remaining. I think that that was one of the main things that we wanted to show in the sketch. One of the things I didn't talk about in the site plan is there's a connection right here from the side of your parking lot to this park. And so we want to emphasize that actually and do some work around that. So that's one of the things we'd like to engage with you on as well, is how do we do that? What does it look like? Here's our parking layout. We have 88 stalls in the garage, one level of parking. We're working with the grade. The grade falls down as you go that direction, so we're kind of building into the hill, if you will. And then this is the second floor plan, 2 through 4, so 2, 3, and 4. And again, it's studios through 3 bedrooms stacked on every floor. We did this illustrative sketch here to show how the massing of the building interacts and shows the relationship to the existing building here. One of the reasons why we wanted to do that, Troy kind of talked about it a little bit, but we can actually build quite a bit more density here than we're showing, more units. And we've actually come to you with the concept of building a little bit less so that this building isn't quite so big. It's 1 story lower than we could build potentially. And then we also kept this side of the building a little bit shorter. So as you come by it and see it in reference to the church building, it's a little bit diminished. And you can see the roof line here aligns, you know, with the roof line of the church. So the intent really is that the massing and the scale feels very comparable. These are the pretty pictures. Pictures tell 1,000 words. This is that courtyard. That arrow number 2, if you go up on the site plan, there's little arrows that have numbers in them. Those are referring to the images. So this is that community center. You can see the trees kind of coming through as well. The intent is to have a play area here and have a couple pieces of play equipment. And then to have a community garden in the center also. We located it on this side so that we would get some sun. And then this would just be open area. There's a little private courtyard back here for the residents, and then this more community-based outdoor gathering area. You can see that again here. So here's that courtyard again. This is showing the bird's eye view. So really again looking at the massing and seeing kind of how big the building is in comparison to the massing of the church. And then this is the front entry right here. Kind of a close-up. This is further back in this direction. So this would be the entrance that you come in now to the parking lot, and you kind of come in and circle around, so we're keeping that intact. And then this would be that little parking lot for visitors, and then the right there would be down to the parking garage. So I think that's about all. Does anybody? I guess we're not doing questions right now.
Well, we didn't know. Okay. I did want to clarify for the end. Poppi talked a little bit already that the intended audience in the affordable housing sphere, there is lots of different kind of segregations within that in terms of the communities that are served. So the congregation for the homeless that we've had here every year that use our fellowship hall, those are serving the people that are homeless that have no place to live. There are organizations such as Plymouth Housing and Compass Housing, I believe, that provide housing for people that are at the lowest income level. They call 30% of area median income or less. And those include people that are either homeless or formerly homeless. They often have special needs, case managers, higher level of care that's needed for those residents. The next step up is considered more kind of workforce housing, and those are people that are whose family income is $45,000 to $70,000, kind of in that range. And those are people that are teachers, nurse practitioners, civil servants, people that are part of our community every day that cannot afford to rent even an apartment, let alone own a home in our community. And that is the group that we are intending to serve with this project. So it's not there's a huge need for people at the lowest income level, and we as a congregation, if that's where we want to go, we can still decide to do that, but that isn't what we've conceived of right now. That is still an option, but not something.
I just wanted to add that in workforce housing that considered are also the local police and firefighters in your community are in that population.
Right. It's amazing how much of our community is priced out of living in Bellevue. It is just astounding to that extent. Another,
yeah. So I have two questions. The first one was kind of just out of pure curiosity, relative to what you're building and architecting here. You said the cap that Bellevue permits is much higher, and you mentioned one of those factors is you could build up another story. You're not doing that.
Potentially another story or a larger footprint.
A larger footprint, yeah. Would that also include, like Bellevue would allow you to just do entirely studios as opposed to like the 3 bedrooms, or does that not really impact it?
They would, but you could talk to why you guys chose family housing, but that was one of the guidelines that we were given, was that we wanted to serve families.
No, I was just kind of more curious whether the Bellevue regulations are looking at population density or unit density.
They do. It is based on units per acre, believe it or not. That's how they define it. They've increased our zoning capacity substantially so that the faith base gets not only an increase in the base, but then you get a bonus on top of it, but it's defined on units per. So if we could have 180 studios, or you could have 183 bedrooms.
Okay, interesting.
But that's...
Yeah, the second question I had was just, what's the overall, we talked about this is kind of targeting that workforce population, and definitely with the larger, 2-3 bedroom units, we're talking more families. So what does the actual population impact look like? How many people would this house, and specifically how many kids? Because I don't know if you're aware, but Bellevue's going through this whole school consolidation thing. And so at the middle schools, but they're looking at that out through 2032, I think. Which becomes interesting because this could have potentially a substantial impact on the middle school consolidation, which is what they're talking about this year at least. So I'm curious, and that's within that time frame, and that may or may not be something that they're already aware of.
Yeah, there will be about 300 to 400 folks living here with children. The 3 bedrooms can have up to 4 kids. I think it's 2 kids per bedroom, and then the adults, or the adult. And then the 2 bedrooms, it's very similar. So we get some larger families. In the family housing also, we sometimes get extended families as well.
So I'm just curious, what is the population in these types of units that you get? What does the population breakdown typically look like for you?
The demographics.
The demographics in terms of ages specifically.
Yeah. Troy, do you want to speak to that?
There'll be a wide range, but I would expect, as Hal has alluded to, workforce housing is basically, you'll have 2 incomes just trying to get by. So you're probably in that, late 20s to 40s, 50s would be probably the normal bandwidth. We serve a full range. We have projects that just do seniors. We don't discriminate, unless it's a senior specific or whatnot. So we'd expect the full range, maybe more seniors in some of the studios. Part of the reason that we designed in the shape that we did was to make sure that the children in the community had a safe place. And also by designing that way, you get the secondary benefit of the extra set of eyes for the community, where the community looks out for itself. And it's also a welcoming gathering area. And then if you look at the shape of this building, it is very similar, and that was very deliberate, that we wanted to be complementary, as if it was always contemplated that that would be the next phase of what happens here. So we tried to really be sensitive to that, along with, you know, kind of making it fade in the background as best. Again, this is a concept, and we have a tendency to, Poppi and I like to go out there and say, well, you know, what we're going to do that's really exciting, and what do they want? It's like, yeah, make it fade in the background, make it look like trees or whatever. It may not look like that when we're done. And I think what we're talking about is, this is the shape of the building that is, the most important part is, how does it interact with this building? How does it serve the community and the members within the building itself?
Scott, you had a question?
Yeah, 2 or 3. So first, this is considered a 3 or a 4-story construction. 4. Second, this street is kind of difficult. It's difficult to get in here, difficult to get out. Traffic light isn't set up quite well. I'm wondering to what extent we've looked at traffic patterns, traffic engineering.
So we'll do a full traffic study. We expect that we're going to have to address that as part of the entitlement process. It may also mean that our project will have some burden to update the traffic light system. It looks like it's fully lighted the way it needs to be. We're doing a project in Bothell right now where we're actually adding a traffic light. So that's a lot of fun, and it's very expensive. But when it's existing, then what you can talk about is it's changing the capacity and the traffic patterns. But we always, as part of the process, have to address, you know, what is the traffic impact. So we'll be addressing that and making sure that it fits within the city standards as well.
And then the last question is whether or not the LDS Church is aware that we're having this discussion, or whether
we have not. We were not even contemplating going and talking to our neighbors until we talked to our congregation first. Okay. So our task force has identified that, based on the response from our congregation, we need to go out and talk to our neighbors, fire stations, the LDS Church, you know, anybody else, to let them know, you know, what we've got in mind. You know, we are anticipating a strong support from them as well. One of the things on your question, Scott, on traffic, what's unique about this is that our church demand for peak trip is completely off cycle with the residents, because we are Sunday morning peak trip coming in and out. They're Monday through Friday, you know, AM to PM. So my guess on our traffic study is that even though there's 100 units here, it'll have minimal PM peak hour trip demand on the intersection, because we're just off cycle with it completely. So still have to do the study, but that's kind of the process. So did you have another question, or we get all 3 of yours done?
good.
Good questions too. Don't get a lot of traffic questions.
Yeah.
Could you speak just for a moment, kind of continue on what makes this site, this property, attractive as an affordable housing place in our community surrounding us?
So that's a good question, and there's 2 approaches. First, I want to emphasize, you know, there's 33 faith-based properties that in Bellevue, 36 that are benefiting from this zone. We have a planning commission.
Got here 38. I'm expecting 45 by the time we leave here.
St. Andrew's Lutheran Church, we are very uniquely, fortuitously situated. Our improvements are all located on the northwest side of our property, up here on the top of our site. We have just under a 5-acre parcel. The lower part that does 2 things is that we can have a building like this that's below. You know, there's a big grade that drops off. The parking lot we won't even see from here because it's under the building and it daylights to the downhill side, so we won't even see the parking. The entrance to it is off the street, not coming through our parking lot, so we don't have congestion associated with their traffic coming in the same entry as ours. Because it drops off, our floor that we're on right here will be about at the 3rd level of the 4-story building. over there. So we will still have a 4-story building. We'll be able to see all 4 stories, but when we're looking out from our entrance, you're essentially looking at the height of a 2-story building on the other side of our parking lot. And it's 180 feet from our entrance to this point right here. A normal city street where your sidewalk to sidewalk is 60 feet. So this is almost it's 2.5 times as far as a normal city street. So we have a lot of space. So our property is, no other church probably in Bellevue will be situated like our church is, where we could accommodate this. Most of them are going to have a church sitting right in the middle of the property. To do anything like this, they'd have to do a little bit around the sides, or they'd have to tear the church down or something like that. So this is, our forefathers that did this, I'm sure didn't have this in mind, but the way it laid out was really wonderful for this opportunity. Now to your question on the community as a whole, we have this location is an excellent location for housing, and it's an excellent location for the growth of our city. We are uniquely located, as we all know, right next to the major transit areas. We're close to the Eastgate Park and Ride. We're close to the buses that come by here, so people can take transit. Our community was developed in the 50s and 60s with the automobile, with big sites, lots of cars. We're not making any more land. Our city is confined by its limits, and we as a city are changing to have a different vernacular in what our buildings look like and how we use it. And we need to, as a group, we are going to look at what does density mean to all of our neighborhoods, because it will not be what it was when it was built in the 50s. So this is a step in that direction. Still a gracious step, but it is a step in that direction.
We're also close to Bellevue College.
And we're across the street from Bellevue College. We're close to just lots of grocery stores, lots of services. So, it's a very, we're given a gift in that regard, and we all know the location of our church and how beneficial it is to the community. So, does that answer your question? Yeah.
Hi. Following up on the Bellevue College proximity, and don't forget McDonald's. I was wondering, and it may not be compatible with the workforce housing objective, but has there been any consideration to going up one more floor, car-free, to accommodate students? I had heard there was a lack of student housing.
I actually know a little bit about the student housing at Bellevue College.
Can you repeat?
Yeah, I'm not on this one.
The question was, could we add units, another floor, or in the building to be specific for students at Bellevue College, because there is perceived to be a shortage of student housing to serve the students at Bellevue. So the students from Bellevue College would be eligible still to live within the studios, or they could double up. A lot of them will have 2 kids in a 1-bedroom or something like that, as long as they meet the criteria for the incomes to live here. Bellevue College recently built a purpose-built student housing on their campus. They have, that was opened about 3 or 4 years ago. They actually have a plan for 2 more buildings on their campus for that same purpose. That obviously is a better location for the students because it's right on campus and they can use their funding source. So even though our project, as well as others in the community, is open for students that meet the criteria, they're probably purpose-built here is probably not the best step for that. Yes, Ron? Yeah, sorry.
In the parking area, 90-some spots remaining, and how does that rub against the hoping we get back to 5-year-ago attendance?
Right.
How does that rub against maximum attendance on those 3 or 4 holiday Sundays that we would have?
Yeah. So I know that Kurt has we've been thinking about parking, and we are losing some of the parking with this solution. And so I don't know if Kurt, you have current numbers of what we
I don't have numbers, but just really on those 2 Sundays, Christmas Eve and Easter, where we come close to filling even the reduced amount, we have agreements with the Mormon Temple that we can share their parking right across the street. And because again, off cycle, they don't celebrate Christmas and Easter the same way we do.
So for those that have been in the St. Anne as long as we have, and I know there's many of you here in the room, I remember when we had the big peak days, and those of us that were more willing and able were asked to park over in Bellevue Community College parking lot and walk across the street and leave the parking closed for those that were, more mobility impaired. So that's one of the things that we need to do is talk with the Mormons, talk about their overflow. We need to come up with solutions to service that, that at the end of the day, for the 2 days, or even we could have a memorial service that has a really large attendance, we need to have a plan that can fulfill the needs for the congregation on those days. So those are part of our work to be done. Yeah. Yes?
I have concerns about, so is it 80, 100 units? How many units?
It's 102 units? Yeah.
Are any of the other Imagine Housing projects that big? And why do we need to go that big? Because if you have 102 units, your 88 parking spots underneath are not going to cut it. And they're going to spill over into our lot then. And the amount of delivery trucks coming every day, that's a lot of people.
So we've been thinking about the parking, and we've looked at how much is being built, what the demand is, and we have to do some more study on that to determine exactly what is that balance, both for deliveries. This is the first image that the design team has shown, where they've shown those visitor stalls that we've seen before. So that's part of our task force job, is to explore that further and try to find out what the balance of demand is. In both the parking that's left for the housing and the parking that's left for both of the church, the amount being provided for both of those is more than what's required by code. We already are providing more parking than what the code requires.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that's reality.
It doesn't necessarily meet demand. So that's something that we have to do some more identification is, and come back and say, this is the homework we've done on this and what we found. And the amount of parking that is provided by the apartments, or what we need, we'll have to adjust based on what we find on our homework. So that we're not there yet.
Are there any other projects that are this big? Why do we need to go this big?
Well, I'll let Troy answer.
I believe our biggest project to date is about 91 units. All the projects that we're working on now are in the 100 to 150 unit range. And there's a couple reasons. Obviously, there's a huge problem of affordable housing being needed out there. That's just one part of it. But as you build to a certain size, you start getting some cost efficiencies, because it's a very expensive venture to build affordable housing. There's a lot of legal requirements for the financing structure that you wouldn't normally see in a regular development, so we have that cost burden as well. And so we're trying to be as efficient with the resources that we have available to us. It's also, in order to get those resources, many of the funders are looking to see how many units are you putting out. They don't really prioritize smaller projects. So part of the direction we're going to be part of the solution for the affordable housing crisis is finding ways to provide more units to the community as quickly as we can.
So basically this takes up all of our land. So all of our trees are going to be gone. The trees left will be the park trees, correct?
No, there's, on the site plan, there's our building from our northern edge of our boundary to our property line is 50 or 60 feet. You know, we're within the setback requirements, so we're not completely filling the footprint that could be built there. That was one of the options that was proposed, was one that took the entire footprint up, and we scaled it back from that to fit something a little more.
Okay. Oh, I'll speak to that a little bit too.
You can see here. Yeah.
So this whole section right here, there's actually a little parking lot right here. So we're gonna re-tree that, if you will. And then we're saving all of these trees here, and then some of these down in this area, and then we'll be adding trees back along the front edge as well.
The white line, outer white line is our property, so that's
this line.
Yes, both.
95%.
Yeah. Who owns the land and what's the insurance with that?
The church owns the land.
Insurance-wise liable?
No. Well, the structure that would be envisioned, regardless of how big the project is that you create two condominiums. One would be the affordable housing, and one would be the rest of the church. They would have their own, condominium with their own insurance. All the liability for that stays with that. We don't have any liability for that, and they wouldn't have any liability for the church, so they become completely separate in that regard. And there's no financial obligation or financial liability for the church either. So we have time for one more question. Oh, lots of hands still. All right, Darcy?
Well, I think there's an aerial view where you show the park. And yes, we'll be taking up a number of our trees, but the park that borders us is like this buffer.
This right here. See?
Right here. Yeah, that one. There are more trees than we.
Right.
I mean, we're certainly not damaging
the forest.
Climate change.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we are at time now, so hang on to your questions, write them down, come back after service. I'm sorry, but Kurt gave me the cut fingers up here, so yeah, break it. But we all welcome you all to come into worship, obviously, and then we'll be back here right afterwards with any more questions.